Hello and welcome to the Spaceship Jam of 2025. Not sure why I added the year there actually, because this is the first Spaceship Jam ever done. My name is Häll. I'm going to be your host for a few hours now. We're going to have some wonderful talkers here talking about what ESA is, what the Jam is, and how those things combine in a beautiful, wonderful, jammy way. Quickly. Just a quick shout out to FGJ, Finnish Game Jam Association, for making all of this happen. It's very, very cool of you. We all love you. Thank you for doing what you do. All the volunteers, everyone who is a part of this, you're cool. And then a quick shout out to ESA, European Space Agency, for being doing this collaboration and wanting to do something, I guess, a little out of ordinary for the agency, because they haven't really done anything like this. This is the first ever collaboration between ESA and any kind of game industry or game jamming or anything game related-ish. And it's a good year because this is the year when ESA is celebrating 50 years of existence, I suppose. And, maybe this will be the beginning of the golden era of ESA. Either way, why we're here is because of jams. We're making games and we'll be jamming the whole weekend. And the thing here is, the question, I guess, is what's the point with ESA and jamming? And as I was told by our ESA representative, there's going to be, I'm going to see if I can do this, but the way they thought about it is that early exploration preparation starts with innovation, which sounds like a bar. But the idea is that games have this inherent innovation and creative thinking in them, and they want to see if they can give these materials to people and kind of outsource the whole idea. Well, not the whole idea, but like outsource this and see what people come up with. And I'm the wrong person to talk about that. So I'm going to bring on the stage a person who's way more qualified to talk about that. This is a person who has been working with games for a long, long time, 10-ish years, or give or take, specifically VR and game design, been with ESA for a couple of years now. And without further ado, please, Noora Archer, the stage is yours.
Right. Hello, everyone here in Helsinki, and of course also online on all of the other sites. I hope you've had a super amazing day already since yesterday. Probably a little bit, I hope you got a little bit shut eye also, because I know it can be pretty intense with game jamming. I want to give you quite a brief look-see into what we do at Spaceship. So the whole event is called Spaceship Game Jam. So why are we as Spaceship, and what does it actually entail? Turns out Spaceship is actually the team where I'm, for example, working, and a lot of the people who are involved from the ESA side are from, not limited to, but from the Spaceship teams. So we are, let me see, I think my presentation is, yes, starting to show now. I have probably more slides than I have time, so I'll skip a couple ones of them. Please let me know if you want in the ending to have a bit more questions on them. I'll try to answer, but there's a lot of things that we do. Indeed, as mentioned, I come from Finland. I started working at ESA a couple years ago, especially in the Spaceship team and with early innovation and exploration preparation. So that means that once we are going to further away to the moon, to the Mars and beyond, we need to prepare on an early stage. And that also means that technologies such as virtual reality or even game design tools on game engines become quite central, because we don't know yet exactly what something looks like out there, but we have these tools that can actually help to a little bit open up the opportunities and the kind of what science and information looks like when it's visualized. A couple pictures from my own background as well. So as mentioned, I'm a game designer. So when I started at ESA, I was working much less with space technology and science, and much more with games and utilizing different kind of opportunities, for example, on wearables and different kinds of ways to utilize the human body to use games, or and games are an amazing way to do it, or robotics and such. But yeah, let's jump now into the topic of what spaceships are. So just a bit of a technical structure. So within ESA, we have the Terra Novae, which is the kind of inspiration for this event as well. So it is the European kind of like a framework of how we want to see ourselves being in the near future in space as Europeans and as technology developers and users. What kind of things can we bring back from that information back to the Earth? So the first spaceship, which was born in the European Astronaut Center, which we call EAC, was a project founded in 2012. So it's been quite a while already there. And it was founded by a former astronaut, Frank de Winne, who also served at EAC for a long time as the facility head. But recently he has retired. And so we want to tackle the future of human and robotic space exploration and focus firstly on the moon, but now we've developed much further from there already, and we have more than one spaceship. But Spaceship itself is again part of a group called EXPERT, which is a great acronym, but comes from words exploration, preparation, research, and technology. So the EXPERT team makes studies that firstly open the opportunities of technology and science and what could we utilize. And then the kind of main function of spaceships is to take those studies and research and then put them into some kind of facilitation. So make sure like early level innovations out of them and start developing these technologies, utilizing tools and materials, and then also see what kind of help do we actually need to use them once we go there. Sorry, that was a bit of a mouthful. Putting it into a kind of a context, we have the EXPERT team, and then we have 3 spaceships right now. There's actually one more spaceship as well. Let me see, do I have it already here? So yeah, we have 3 spaceships right now, one in Germany, one in UK, and one in France. Myself, I've worked both in Germany and UK currently. And then we have also one in France under the CNES, which is the French space agency. And then just recently, they don't have yet a logo. I'm sure they'll have one soon. We have a new spaceship in Poland. So we're also, it goes to show that the European innovation in space is growing. And hopefully we will see much more of this in the near future, as we are going all the time more in the need of more people innovating. Quickly on the topics that we mostly work under. So we try to kind of put some kind of categories on what areas do we work on. We have advanced manufacturing, energy, off-world living and crew health, disruptive technologies, which includes the areas where I'm mostly working. So virtual reality, AR, extended realities, AI, space resources, and robotics. And it's also good to know that all of these topics oftentimes kind of interlink somehow together. And we also have examples of very interdisciplinary work that goes into many areas, but we try to make our own work a little bit easier to just to give this kind of structure to it. And I would like to show you some projects, and I'll try to not go through them all because I know we maybe are a bit pressed on time, and we have a super interesting talk coming also after me. So I'll give a couple of examples. So one of the most important topics that we work on is regolith, which is the lunar soil. So we can't, of course, have lunar soil here on Earth that much. It's extremely difficult to get from there. And the one that we have from the Apollo missions is quite a long time ago already, and it is a very limited amount that we have. So what we develop is simulants, basically. So we've been able to understand what is the mineral structure in different parts of moon, for example, and then develop from that a kind of a simulant that we can use then here on Earth. For example, to create even a full-scale lunar simulation center. So Analogue simulation center. You'll probably see a picture on the slide a little bit later from our Luna Center, which has, I think it's 900 tons of regolith simulant, so that the astronauts can actually utilize that as a lunar surface. So here is just a little bit of the composition of how do we basically understand what kind of things we need to have in this simulant. Then another kind of way to develop on the regolith. So regolith is one of the most important materials also when we think about moon, because nothing that you, like everything that you take from Earth to out from the atmosphere and out from the gravitation of Earth that's the hard part, because you can't have everything. You should have as little as possible, because we need to get off from the Earth's pull, and that takes a lot of energy and a lot of fuel. So we need to use as much as possible what we find in the place where we're going. So in this case, for example, on the moon. So we're also developing different ways to utilize regolith, for example, by melting it and creating this kind of moonstone, so kind of a glass-like structures, and how can you use them. So ideas on this, for example, is that you could, if you had like a way to melt, for example, larger areas, you could create these kind of solid surfaces that could be utilized for, I guess a lot of things in smaller scale, for example, to just create some kind of surfaces, but maybe in large scale, you could even make some kind of a road kind of setup, or utilize it at least partially in something like that. This is basically not the same, but you can also press or 3D print the regolith. So again, we have just different kind of ways that we try to understand how could we use regolith in a best possible way. So if you mix it also with a bit of PLA or different kinds of materials that you usually use in 3D printing, you can create this kind of a mass that then can be formed into objects, tools, firstly, of course, but maybe one day in future, even into housing or such. Here is also pictures of some of the moon bricks that have been created by pressing them through a system, which is, of course, a nice way. Same in here as well. Let's go forward. Lots of projects. Also you can use some of these materials to create solar cells, which are, of course, really important as well. So it will keep coming up on these slides as well, that one of the big challenges in the moon is that the lighting conditions are extremely difficult, and a lot of the energy that we utilize on the moon is dependent on how much can we actually get energy from the sun. But because of this situation that every 14 days, for example, if we're in the center side of moon, we have 14 days of darkness and 14 days of light. On that dark time, basically any kind of solar array will not get through it, because it will just empty all of the batteries, and that's a huge challenge for a longer stay on the moon. So the first missions that we're now kind of seeing happening with the new Artemis missions are going to happen to the lunar South Pole, where the situation is not challenging in that way, but it is in a different way, because the way that the sun kind of moves all the time in the horizon of the moon surface, it means that there will constantly be these long shadows and lights kind of shifting around. And when there is no air on moon, it means that every shadow is completely opaque. So completely, you can't see anything there. There's no, on Earth usually, because we have air, we can see something in shadow, but on the moon is completely dark. So you put your hand, it disappears. You take it off, it comes back into seeing. So developing solar array technologies is super important for the moon. This is an interesting project also to try. Some of the acronyms are, of course, part of the ESA culture, to come up with very funny acronyms. So this is basically using sunlight then to compress it into a kind of a laser beam, and then use this laser beam to create, for example, this a moon rock that you saw earlier. So to just melt it, for example. Yeah, I'll jump a couple into more gamified experiences maybe, because it's more relevant for this. So one project, my project actually is using virtual reality to look forward to opportunities that we have mapped. So one opportunity, kind of a long time interest for Europe, has been to have our own capability to have a crew flight. And it starts with having a capability to take cargo up to the low Earth orbit where we have the ISS, for example, but it goes all the way to the opportunity of taking humans to the moon, even beyond. And to visualize this then has been part of my work to create this human capable or crew capable vessel design and capsule, and then how do we test it in with the help of virtual reality. And here's just a couple quick pictures of the testing setup. So we have a sort of a simplified interface here for the capsule, and then a user testing different kind of buttons, and then we develop it from there on, understanding better how to use. And sure, we could create real mock-ups as well. We could use the technology to create something, but I mean, it becomes quite obvious that it becomes really expensive after a time, and we want to do, of course, things as fast and fail fast and then try again quickly. So this is also very much in the spaceship spirit. Then there is, of course, another thing is that part of ESA's mission is to help people understand what we're doing and get more people interested. So another thing that we did with Muse, which was this project showed earlier, we created this kind of immersive experience just for gamers for it, and people who just want to experience the flight to the low Earth orbit and then coming down, because I think not many people have tried it. And this is something that is actually available on the ESA website as well. If anyone wants to download it and try it on Quest 3, you can test yourself the flight to the low Earth orbit and then the return. So this one was done, for example, with the help of Frank De Vinne, who was mentioned earlier. So I interviewed him about the experience of doing this, especially this coming back down from the orbit is quite a ride. Expose is another one of my projects, again, on the gamified side more. So Expose is I was talking about the operations on the moon and the challenges on the South Pole. So this project aims to map what's going to be the first 14 days on the moon when humanity returns there, or when we put actually our own robotic large lander called Argonaut, which is shown here in the picture. So Argonaut is this, if you remember the moon lander from Apollo time, Argonaut is much bigger, and its purpose is to actually take cargo to the moon, because the first operations there as well, we can put humans there to visit, but if we want humans to stay on the moon, we need to bring things for them. We need to bring all of these tools and systems to actually start developing something out of regolith or other things available. And in a quick comic way, what we want to do, for example, with the Expose is that we connected with the ground operations. So the people who work on the ground stations to talk to the astronauts in space and one day on the moon. And also with the machines just to see how they work. And so we use the virtual reality with the Unreal game engine to map in information from the simulation system. So we have this kind of visual interface that will help in a completely new way, give this immersive opportunity to develop. Some of these assets I wanted to show because you guys actually have them available for your use. So we also do work on just to understand better what would be 3D assets that are close to realistic scientific opportunities. So please use them if you are developing a game right now. It is an awesome way to also understand better the kind of limitations and opportunities in the technology side. Yes, I have very little time left. I will give you a couple more examples and maybe that's it. So that it doesn't become too exhaustive. Another project where I was also working on, it is also an example of a multidisciplinary project. So one of the great challenges of space is the radiation. Radiation Also, we have one source that is quite close to us, the sun and the solar flares. So in an event where solar flare happens, if the worst thing happens, it can blow out a lot of machinery also from power. And of course, it has very drastic events on the human body. So the long-term events of being affected by a solar flare without the ability of having all this wonderful oxygen that we have and the atmosphere that we have around here on Earth. If you don't have that and you're in space, you will most likely end up with severe consequences on a long term on your life developing, for example, possibility for cancer or even more faster coming up events. So it's very dangerous. So a concept that we've been developing in Spaceship is this solar radiation shielding vest, which is based on water. So again, we could bring maybe a lot of lead, like a lead shielding or a armor into space, but that's impossible because we can't take that weight there. So what we're using is water as a concept because we have to take water into space anyway for humans to drink. So we could maybe utilize this. And just a quick word on game design here is that some of you might be familiar with the tool here in the little animation. So this marvelous designer, which is used quite often in game design to design clothes. And for us, it was actually a really good way to also visualize how would water possibly look like in a vest when it's done in a cloth design manner, which is of course great to think. And here also some of the other details of the project developing. We did also develop it for female body specifically because about 11% of all astronauts are female in the history. And there's very little information of the need of a female body actually to have protection in space. And it turns out that female body needs more radiation protection than male body. So it only makes sense that we develop for a female body and then it becomes inclusive for everyone. So it's actually really, really great. Yes, regolith itself, by the way, is a great mitigation of radiation as well. So if you create about 1 meter of regolith on top of yourself, like an igloo or a burrow, you're quite safe from radiation on the moon. Yeah, I think that I am absolutely out of time. If we want to have some questions, maybe we can have them now, and then I'll tell you guys more.
I have actually one question.
Yeah, sure.
Regarding the simulation that you showed.
Yeah.
So when you design the simulation, because like in space you have different different things you need to consider compared to Earth. For example, you don't have gravity.
Yeah.
Is that like is there any of those differeces that you need to take into consideration when designing the simulation, and how would you simulate something as, for example, you will have gravity on Earth, it's kind of hard to get rid of it, but in space you don't. Yeah, well, there's different aspects to it. So training, for example, for the for example, being in zero gravity or lowered gravity is not a one-way road in a way. So you're absolutely right. We can do something in virtual reality simulation, for example. We can simulate how objects fly around, but we will still be very much bound by gravity here on Earth. But we do have different systems. For example, on the test bed of Luna, here is the picture of a few astronauts there. So we're going to have this kind of like an offloading system where we're going to have them on wires, basically, that will robotically simulate the way that they would move in lowered gravity on Moon. But so what it goes to say is that we need very different, we need analog, we need digital, and we need virtual systems, and a kind of a pipeline of all of these to make a best assessment of what space is. But I'm sure there will be things that are always coming as a new thing. That's maybe the beauty and challenge of exploration. Yes, go ahead, Henry.
This is a super pedestrian question compared to the earlier one. Nothing super smart, but like, because we were talking about games, I'm just interested. Do people at ESA play a lot of games? Like, are there any space games that you guys are like, this is great?
Well, ESA did collaborate with Fortnite, I think about a year ago, to create a kind of a sort of a realistic understanding of the 1/6 of gravity on the moon and making like this game project out of that. But yeah, a lot of ESA people are gamers as well on their free time, and which actually brings this as a natural point of view why we started organizing this, because it kind of connects in a natural way. Maybe that kind of answers the... Yeah, go ahead, Jaan.
Yeah, just an addition that Kerbal Space Program is the mandatory game for every space path, even in ESA.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, we do have a Kerbal Space Program club, for example, that does some rocket launching competitions and such. And of course, Minecraft is also a game that everyone enjoys, doing a little bit of testing there. And I think we also have a Minecraft server during this event. So just to also give a shout out for people to look into it. I hope we get also our ESA scientists there during the weekend, so you get to do some cool Minecraft stuff there. But yeah, that I think sums up. We have the next speaker lining up. So thanks everyone for listening. I hope it wasn't very confusing. I'm just gonna cut it off because there's so many more slides still going on. Oh, one more. Yeah.
Share the slides on that Discord for everyone after this.
Sorry.
Will you share the slides on Discord for all of the attendees?
Oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, great. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Noora. It's actually kind of funny. My first game jam I ever went to, you were one of the hosts.
Oh,
there,
I
so
was.
The circle is closing.
Yeah,
in a way.
True.
That was a while ago.
Yeah.
It was you were a wonderful host, actually. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah.
I'm super glad. Yeah. So well, it's continues. Next chapter is here.
Absolutely. Thank you for a very, very interesting speech and a presentation. I mean, that was very, very cool. I feel like I'm not smart enough to get all of it, but like, you know, I played enough No Man's Sky. I know my shit. I could survive. But yeah, we are here to listen a little bit more from ESA. The next person we're going to have is Romain Charles, not here but online, so you can watch it on the stream, and we'll hopefully get it on the stream here as well. Romain is someone who had a very different way of getting into the European Space Agency than Noora. He started with this. It was chosen. He studied engineering, applied for this thing called Mars 500 study, which is to, from my understanding, is that was just that to kind of see how people would survive on Mars like conditions, and then see what the results of that was. And then he continued with that. He did a lot of sort of behavioral and other studies after, as a post study after the thing, and then that got him into ESA, and he's been doing quite a few things there since, and he's been a lot of kind of like with Noora, VR, but also robotics, and when I did a little study on him, apparently like good vibes as well. There was specifically mentioned that he chose good music. So, you know, that's good. That's good. I always do appreciate people with good music taste. But without further ado, I think it is our stream people will make some magic happen, and we will get Romain on the screen maybe now.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? I do not have any feedback on my side, so I hope you can hear me. One, two. Yes, you can hear me. Okay, great. Thanks. I didn't look at the chat on the stream. Thank you for inviting me to talk about this mission Mars 100. I hope I listened to good music. At least for me, it was good, but I believe it is different for everybody. But without further ado, I wanted to share with you a bit my path, and especially this experiment, this scientific mission that I participated in. So with that, I will share my screen if I can. Entire screen will be easier. And I cannot share. Maybe just a window? Yes. And if I go full, hopefully, I'm just jumping from one to the other. Can you? No, you cannot see the whole. Let me just try again. Sharing. And this time I will select that one. That's not better. I will try again if anybody has. Okay. Let me try once again to share my whole screen. Maybe my rights were increased. No. Wait, I was. So now I should be sharing my whole screen. Can I just get a yes if you see the whole screen? The silence is a bit unsettling, if you can still hear me. Yes, okay. So sorry for that, for this technical issue. I hope you could enjoy this nice view of my hometown. So I wanted to talk about Mars 100, but I wanted to at least arrive there. How did I arrive in this mission? So this is my hometown. That's where I was born. It's a little city called Laval in the countryside in France. And I grew up and I liked space. That was really a passion that I developed amongst other things, amongst games too. And then I went towards engineering. I thought engineering was a path that I enjoyed and I wanted to take. So this is my engineering school in Clermont-Ferrand in the center of France. So by training, I am a mechanical engineer. And because this school, this engineering school or institute is focused mainly on the automotive industry, even though I wanted to go towards space, my first opportunities for work were in the automotive industry. And I worked for 6 years roughly in a company that was producing composite panels. And composite panels for cars, you usually put them on cars that want to go fast because it's very light. So my main customers were Aston Martin, that you can see on the top, Tesla Motors, the first roadster, which was actually built in the UK. I worked on the body panels of this one, and the bottom right, which is the McLaren, the MP4 12C. I started working on that as a quality engineer when all of a sudden I saw a call for candidates for a mission called Mars 500. So what is Mars 500? It is it's a scientific mission that is trying to answer a big question. So this big question is man psychologically and physiologically able to endure the confinement of a trip to Mars? So in other words, can we spend 520 days confined in the mock-up of a spaceship with 5 other guys, so 6 total, without killing each other and still working efficiently together? And spoiler, this mission was a success because we were 6 when we entered, and we're still 6 when we exited 1.5 years later. This mission was organized by the Institute of Biomedical Problems that you can see on the bottom left, ESA, the European Space Agency, top right, and also the Astronaut Center of China. That's why you have in the crew 3 Russians. I'm sure you can all read the name of those guys. So middle bottom is our commander, Alexei Sityov. Bottom left, our crew surgeon, Sukhrob Kamalov. Top middle, Alexander Smolievsky, who is also a medical doctor. And top left, Van Yue, our comrade from China, a researcher in physiology. And on the right, the 2 Europeans that were selected, Diego Urbina, bottom right, Italian, and myself, French. So this is the final crew of Mars 100. And so I want to just explain a bit where did this happen? So to explain a bit, where did we spend those 520 days, this trip to Mars and trip back from Mars? So you can see on the top right a picture from the outside of the modules in which we were living. So those big metallic cylinders on the right, this is where we were living. On the left, you have some schematics showing you the modules. During the whole mission, we had access to 3 modules, 3 main modules. The utility module, so the storage module in a way, where we had all the food, experiments, clothes, all that. We also had, the most important for us, this habitable module, which was the living module. For this one, you have to imagine roughly the size of a bus. And inside that bus, we had a bathroom, control room, 6 rooms, 1 kitchen, and 1 living room. And the last one we had access to for the whole mission was this medical module, the one which is perpendicular at the end. This medical module was kind of our work module. That's where we would do our experiments. And so those 3 ones, we spent 520 days there. In the middle of our mission, when we reached Mars, and I put brackets when I said that, so we had access for 1 month to this Martian lander just here. And during that month, for 2 weeks, 3 crew members went into further confinement and lived there for 2 weeks. And 2 hours, they had access to the Martian surface, which is this big red bubble above the modules. So 6 hours on the surface for a year and a half of the trip. It's not too bad, I would say, as a ratio. I put some pictures at the bottom of this screen to show you what was inside those modules. They were taken roughly 1 year after we entered, so you have an idea of how we decorated it. So bottom left is our living room, and you can see at the bottom, at the back of this picture, the hatch that goes towards the medical module. So the living room roughly at this side of the living module. And the next bottom right is our kitchen, our little kitchen where we would have our meals, and the hatch that would lead the living module with the storage module. So those pictures were taken on a Saturday at lunchtime roughly, because you can see all the chairs are on the kitchen table, because on Saturday morning we were tasked to clean all the modules, and I thought it would be a good moment to take nice pictures, because otherwise, you know, 6 guys living in a confined space is not always picturesque, let's say. So you have the crew for the Mars 100, and you have the place where it happened. Just for your information, those modules physically are located in Moscow, in Russia. And then let's look at the story. So I stepped back a few months before the entry, before the beginning of the mission, because actually the beginning was a whole selection process. And this selection followed a little bit what you would imagine for an astronaut selection, with a big form to fill online, and then some interviews, psychological interviews, medical check. And where it differentiates itself from the astronaut selection is that we started training, and as you can see here, we're still 11 candidates. And we trained for the mission for 2 months before they extracted from those 11 candidates the final crew of 6 which went for the mission. So that was a bit different, but Diego, Alexei, Alexander, Vanue, Sukrov, and myself. And just behind me is the door of the storage module, and that will be closed after us and sealed, as you can see here, and will remain closed for a year and a half. So that was the beginning of our adventure. But what did we do during this year and a half of mission? Well, our work was to do scientific experiment. It was a scientific mission. And we had a lot of experiments. Most of them, as you can imagine, were towards the psychology and the physiology. Physiology is how does the body react to confinement. And here is an example of Diego, who is doing a psychological experiment. He's learning to pilot a spacecraft to dock it to a space station. And because it's a very complex task, the question was, can you learn complex skills in confinement, and can you keep these skills at a high enough level? And you can see plenty of sensors all around Diego. It's because the principal investigator, the PI, as we say, the scientist behind this experiment, wanted to know if we were tense when we were learning how to pilot this spacecraft. I learned from him that when you are learning to develop these kind of skills, if you are tense while learning it, if you do a mistake, those mistakes tend to be more dramatic than if you are chill and you do a mistake, but well, you come back quickly. So all those measurements was to see how tense we were when learning to pilot. Another experiment, because we had 105, we had some strange ones. This one is a physiological experiment, so looking at the body, and the title, and this is the title that was written, is pain tolerance. So you can see on my left arm some kind of white plastic thing. It's like an iron. It gets hotter and hotter and hotter, and when it's painful, I have to press the red button, which is on my right hand. And you would ask, like, why would you do that to yourself? But when you think about it, when the first astronauts will go to Mars, they will spend 8 months traveling there, most likely. And when they arrive on Mars, they will have a lot of operational activities to do quite quickly. And they will have to wear a big, heavy spacesuit. And this will be on their shoulders and on their head for hours and hours. So if confinement has an impact on the pain tolerance, if our pain tolerance decreases, then it's a real operational risk. So we had to do this experiment over and over again during the whole mission. I unfortunately didn't see the scientific paper behind it, but I was checking at which temperature was I pressing. And for me, at least, it was kind of stable. So there is good hope that pain tolerance doesn't change during a long confinement. Another important experiment, which was also a physiological experiment, was food. Here you can see a picture where we are all eating around our little table, except for Alexander, who is taking the picture. And I can tell you it's at the beginning of our mission, because we still had real milk and real orange juice. Soon after, we moved to powdered milk and powdered orange juice. But what's important is that this experiment was looking at the salt intake. So on the top left corner, you can see little books. And on each page of each book was the menu that we had to eat every day. And we had to eat everything. And the issue is that in itself, the food was okay, but it was not following the agenda, the calendar. So for example, for Christmas, it was broccoli and meatballs. So not the most Christmassy meal that you can imagine. But still, it was quite an important experiment, and we followed that for 8 months no freedom in what we would eat. So these are the kind of experiments that we would do inside those modules. Now, what happened during that year and a half in confinement? Well, when we entered, we were full of energy, looking around. Oh yeah, great, we are finally starting after all this training and this selection process. And we got to know the surroundings, the other guys. We spent 3 months together, but we were continuing discovering their education, everything. And little by little, to work efficiently, we found some little routines to work nicely. And those little routines became a bit more monotonous. We do always the same thing because it works. And little by little, this monotony would become a bit more boring. And so it was, a bit heavy on the shoulders. So to break this monotony, we would create events. So, for example, Halloween is not something that is that present in our cultures. But we decided, why not have a special day for Halloween? We'll put on costumes, we'll watch some horror movies, and we'll play Resident Evil. I don't remember which number it was, but so we created this event for ourselves. And so just for the picture, you can recognize on the right, it's Sukrab as a maths doctor, then Vanue as a mummy, Diego as a Chilean miner, or Commander as a ghost, Alexander as a pumpkin, and myself as a clown on the left. So creating those events would break this monotony and get us some more energy. Sometimes we didn't choose those events. Here on this picture, you don't see a lot, and that's normal. It's a picture that was taken on the 1st of December 2010, and we were doing our work, preparing to go for lunch, and all of a sudden, no more power, and received a message from the control center saying, "Oh, we have had a fire in the power in the fuse box. We called the technician. We don't know when it will be repaired, so good luck." And no power for us inside those modules means no light except for the security lights, no ventilation, and no water because it was working with pumps. So the ventilation, we calculated that it was okay. But in the end, we spent 22 hours in the dark like that. And it was not pleasant, not great because it fell upon us like that all of a sudden. But when we thought about it, it was different. And we'd say, oh, you remember when we had this power outage with this and that? And it became positive in a way because it broke this monotony too. And little by little, one after another, the day passed by, and on the 1st of February 2011, we finally reached Mars. Once again, I put the brackets. And that day was amazing. Amazing for two main reasons. The first one is that we finally reached Mars. That was our target. That was our purpose and a symbol. I mean, we didn't arrive on Mars yet, but it was already very strong. But the other one, very down to the ground, is that we had access to a new room. And because in the scenario, this Martian lander was waiting for us on orbit around Mars, it was filled with all the food and clothes and even some gifts for the trip back. And so all of a sudden, new food, new room, even some gifts. It was Christmas. It was amazing. But quickly we had to remove all that because three of us went into further confinement and went to land on Mars in their little Martian lander. Here are the three Martians, Diego on the top left, Alexander on the top right, and Vanue in the center. And all of them wore those scaphanders. They're called Orlan E. They are close to the Russian spacesuit that you can see on the ISS, but a bit more mobile for the limbs. And quickly enough, so they did everything that an astronaut would do on Mars. They picked up some samples and they planted a flag and they said some inspiring words. Don't ask me exactly what they said. I don't remember their sentences, but I wrote them somewhere if you really want it. After that, 2 weeks later, they came back to the main modules of Mars 100, and we started the trip back from Mars. And I put this picture, which is a bit boring, not that happened here, because the trip back was a bit like that for me. You can see on this picture first the hatch that leads to the storage module on the right, and on the left you can see a corridor, and you can imagine the 6 rooms one after another, the control room, and at the very end the bathroom, also the access to the Martian lander that is now closed. The trip back was a bit harder, I would say, it was more a period. And one of the period that was harder for me was just 1 year after entering the module, so in May, June 2011, because even though we were simulating the delay of communication, so we didn't have access to the internet or anything like that, but we could send messages to the control center, and they would send that to our families and friends, and then we'll get some answers. And in this period, I received a lot of messages from family and friends saying, "Oh, great, it's been a year, continue like that, it's great." But I also received some messages from some journalists that were curious and asking questions and asking, how is it going? 1 year? Can you tell us what happened inside those modules during the year? And how do you foresee the 125 and 55 days ahead of you? And looking back at what happened during that year is also looking back at everything that happened outside that you were not part of. And looking ahead, 155 days, that's 5 months of confinement. It's not a small period of time. So by asking those questions, they obliged me to look at the big picture, which is something we didn't do inside. We're really focused on the present, looking ahead maybe 1 week, and that's it. And so having to look at the bigger picture made me a bit less patient, a bit more grumpy. I didn't have as much patience with the others, but luckily we were a team, and luckily, even though all of us had ups and downs, it was not at the same time, so we could help each other with that. And one way of helping each other was birthdays, because we were 6. We had in that year and a half 10 birthdays to celebrate, which is a lot. And so the quickly enough we had a little traditions to offer each other some gifts. Toward the end, after 10 birthdays, we didn't have that much to offer, but we're preparing some personalized drawings, pictures, and messages. So that was always very nice. And also, we all had personal activities that would bring some energy to us. And I wanted to share with you some additional pictures of one of those activities, which was testing plenty of birds. You don't disappear from the surface of Earth for 1 year and a half very often. So I took this opportunity to try 16 different bird styles. I came back to my initial one still at some point, but you can see that. And I wanted to show these pictures because for the ones who were following us yesterday, I talked about the Wii and the Rock Band game. And you can see in the center, one of those sessions when I was really focused on hitting hard those poor drums. But yeah, so that is the mission of Mars 100. 1 day plus 1 day plus 1 day plus 1 day. At some point, it makes 520 days. And that happened on the 4th of November, 2011. On that day, as you can see on the left, we exited the same door as the one we entered in. The seal was broken. And you see us look in the sky. It's because you have to imagine in front of us is a wall of people everywhere. You had journalists and photographs and officials on the ground floor, and then on the first and second balconies, families and friends who came to see us after 1 year and a half, and they were calling us, and we're looking for them and seeing them for the first time. And I still remember what struck me after 1 year and a half confined is to rediscover plenty of little things. So we saw our family, and we had some fresh food that was so good. And then we were sent to a hospital to stay in quarantine because they were not sure that our immune system would be able to deal with the outside. And on the trip there in our van, were all looking around the windows and were saying like, look, guys, over there, a dog, and look, a baby, but things that we didn't see and we didn't even think about them for 1.5 years. So we're just rediscovering. And the next morning we had to wake up quite early for a blood draw, and I saw my first sunrise after 1.5 years, and I still remember. It is engraved, it's carved inside my memory, going from the dark night all the way to the morning sun with all the colors, purple and orange and red, and that was amazing. So this experiment, as I said, was a success because we were 6 when we exited 1.5 years later. For me personally, it was a big success because thanks to that, I could join the European Astronaut Center as a crew support engineer. So my role at this European Astronaut Center that Noora may have already presented was to facilitate the daily life of the astronauts so they can focus on their mission. Because I had been through this Mars 100 mission, I had some understanding of what is important when you are far away from your family for a long time. So it was communication with the family, it was space food. I worked on launch and landing campaigns. Here you can see a picture of this landing campaign. And so for somebody who loves space, it was amazing. I went to Kazakhstan, to Baikonur, I went to the Kennedy Space Center, I saw several rocket launches with people I knew inside those rockets. So great moments and plenty of things to talk about. And after that, after more than 7 years doing this job, I turned towards the ambitious goal of preparing the future of space exploration with the spaceships. And this is where I am now in the UK, where I sit right now, at the Spaceship EXAT. EXAT stands for European Center for Space Application and Telecommunications, just the name of this site. I will not talk too much about the spaceships because I could see that you had a full presentation from Noora. But with that, I think that ends my presentation of Mars 100, and I hope that you could take some ideas from that, or that at least it was interesting for you. And I will stop sharing my screen in a second.
And can you hear us in Finland? Can you hear us? Do we have a connection? I think we do not have a connection. Nothing? No? Okay. Fair.
Oh no, did I lose audio?
No, we can hear you.
Okay.
But
now I can hear you.
Okay, yes. Woo! There we go. First problem solved. All right, thank you for your presentation. That was really, really cool. Mars 500 is sounds like a very intense experience, but a very, very educational, interesting one.
Well, intense, over 1.5 years, there were many days with not too much to do.
Yeah, I guess, but like also, I've stayed at our summer cabin for 2 weeks, and that was a long time. So I'm just, 2 years is a lot. But we have some questions for you, so I'm gonna read them out so the stream can hear them, and then you can answer them. Shoot.
Yes. So we have to start off with a question from Discord from. Let's see if I can pronounce this name. Seotos.
Oh, Seotos. Yeah.
Seotos. Okay. Yeah. That maybe it makes sense in Finnish.
That creature. Yeah.
So, if the astronaut doesn't come back to Earth, is the muscle mass loss a problem in space? In parentheses, so this needs permanent living conditions in space, of course, but I was wondering this essentially.
So I don't know if you heard that, but the question was is muscle loss an issue? Because if you come down to Earth, it's an issue, but if you stay in space, is that an issue there, providing that you'd have permanent residence?
So muscle loss is an issue in space, and that's why the astronauts, they have to do 2 hours of sport every day just to get their muscle working. I had a former colleague from the French Space Agency, from CNES, saying it in a very nice way. You have to imagine that the astronauts, they are weightless, so their body stays in a restful position. So it's as if 2 hours of sport is a lot, but then it's 2 hours of sport and 22 hours of staying in bed in a relaxed position. So that's why you need to do this sport. On Earth, you walk, you do plenty of things, and because of gravity, you have to use your muscles. So muscle loss is definitely a big issue. The main countermeasure is doing sport and precise exercises to make all those muscle work. But yeah, I have some crew surgeons, colleagues who may answer it even more precisely if you want.
No, I think that's I mean, you made it sound really nice. 22 hours in bed. Like, I don't know. It sounds pretty good to me. But thank you. I think the answers. Did we have more?
Yeah. So the same person also asked, like, how do you grow plants in space in general? And
Oh, yeah. How do you grow plants in space?
So it is not easy to grow plants in space, but it's mainly because you want water to arrive to the plant. So the seeds are put in some kind of cushion. I don't remember which material it is. Is it coconut or cotton or something? And then you put some water, but you don't want to drown it. So there is a fine equilibrium between water and drying it that needs to exist. And because you don't want anything to fly away, usually it's in a confined space, and you inject water through tubes, and it arrives to the plant through capillary systems. So I didn't design it. It's just what I could see and understand from it. We had a similar experiment. It was called the salad machine. It was because for plants, you can simulate space by just turning it around in all directions non-stop. The plant is so slow that it will believe that there is no up and down, and that's how you understand how a plant would grow in space. So our salad machine was turning all the time, and we had to inject water in the center part where the seeds and the roots were staying. We didn't have a lot of luck with salad. The salad machine was not the most. It didn't give us a lot of leaves to eat during this 1 year and a half.
All right. Fair enough. But it's a very simple thing on Earth. Surprisingly difficult in space. Thank you. Did we have more? Do we have here?
I have a personal question, if not.
All right.
That is, like, I mean, I would assume that being closed into a small space, especially with just a few people for a long time, is quite psychologically difficult. But what period would be the most difficult part, and maybe in comparison, what is the easiest part from that perspective?
So the question was like, being in confined space with other people psychologically possibly hard. Was like, what is the easiest part? What is the hardest part of that?
Of like the period, easiest and hardest period during this day.
Yeah.
So it is challenging. It didn't feel hard in a way because we had this chance of getting along quite nicely. I think the main driver for tensions that we had during those missions, during the mission, was cultural differences. You don't react the same way to the same event, and sometimes it can create some tensions. Luckily, we're free enough or tolerant enough, I don't know, to just say it and accept what somebody tells us as soon as it is said or as soon as it happens. And then we would find compromises to work it out. The main example I have is my biggest tension. As a French, I like to eat and talk and exchange, and it's a moment where we're together and we spend hours on the table just talking. But for one of the Russian guys from education, from tradition, his meals at home were silent. And it's only at the end of the meal that you start sharing and talking together. So with my questions, sometimes he would not answer, or he would answer very briefly, and that's fine. But one day I asked him a question, and he didn't answer. So I asked him the question again, and he didn't answer. So I asked him the question again, and he said, "Stop it! Can't you see that you have
bothering me with this question. And I was like, whoa, I didn't expect that. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make you angry. And so the end of the meal was a bit awkward, but after that I went back to my room, and 10 minutes later, which is important, he came back saying, oh, sorry, I was a bit rough on this one, but you have to understand, at home it's silence. So with your question, it was starting to be a bit too bothering. And I understood. I said, okay, well, for me, it's really different. Once we talked about it together, we found compromises. He would just come a bit earlier to eat, and so nobody was there, and he would be in silence. Or I would just prevent myself from asking him the question during the meal. I could talk with the others, and I would ask him the questions at the end. And thanks to this understanding, the rest of the mission was fine. So yeah, cultural differences is often a trigger, and the way you let it go, or you talk about it, or you push against it, would create difficulties. So that's one of the things. As for the best days, those, for me, I had 3 that I put on top of everything. The first one was the New Year, because I didn't expect what New Year meant in Russia. It's like our Christmas and our New Year, but put in one day. That's crazy. So the Russian guys were on from 7 in the morning on the 31st to late at night the next morning, and that was a lot of fun. And the second day was I talked about it. It's when we opened the Martian lander. This one, new food, new room, just new things after 8 months. That was amazing. And the third one was my second birthday, because it was like my first, which was great, but everything was just a bit more personal, because they knew me so well, and people outside the control room knew me so well. They sent some messages that were just, just hitting just right, and I just loved that day. It was great. So those were the highlights.
Fair enough. You can go to space, you can take people to space, but like it still boils down to communication every single time, like personal issues. Yes, I can definitely see that. I feel like also from coming from Finland, we might side a little bit more with this sounds weird to say as Finn, but like we side more with the Russians than the French in this case. But yeah, very, very interesting anecdote. Do we have any other questions here? I have a personal question tying it a little bit to this, because you were there spending a lot of time. Did you have any, like, because you had a bunch of free time, did you play any sort of games or anything to kill time? And what, if so, what?
Thank you for bringing it back, because I wanted to share one of the stories. How long do I have to know how much of the story I need to tell you? Because
it's not too much. The next one is here, but like a few minutes.
Okay, a few minutes. Then I will keep it efficient. We had so first with the other European, we lobbied ESA to get a bit more than what was planned for entertainment inside, and that's how we managed to get a Wii sponsored inside the modules. I played a lot of that. The Rock Band was a big hit. You cannot hear me?
The video stopped, but no, you're back. It's all good.
Okay. Yeah. But what I wanted to talk about is that even though we had plenty of computers and we managed to get games, we didn't have the internet, so we had to be creative. But we had a few ones, and the only game that we could play all together in a LAN that we all enjoyed, and we played it again and again throughout the whole period, was Counter-Strike. This was the biggest hit, and the fun part, and I don't invent it, I promise, is that the Russian guys, they would always want to play the terrorists, I guess because of the AK-47. But so I was always with Diego and Vanue as a counter-terrorist, and yeah, we played quite a few hours of that inside our modules. But another one I remember discovering inside the modules, and I became like, especially with my wife, who is the one who made it who helped me to discover it, is Portal. Portal 1 and 2, I played it inside the Mars 100 modules, and it's still an amazing game. I'm still doing Portal 1 from time to time just for the pleasure of it.
Portal is a fantastic game. Counter-Strike was unexpected. Portal makes sense. Counter-Strike not so. But although if I knew this, I could have used this as an argument because I played a lot of Counter-Strike in second elementary, and my parents were not very happy. I could have said like, I'm training to be an astronaut, guys. It's all good. But okay, do we have any other questions? I think not. So we're good here. Thank you so much, Romain. This is really, really interesting. First of all, the whole project, the way you presented it, and really happy to have you presenting here. Thank you for that.
Thank you for having me. And have a good day and good luck for everybody creating, and I'll be happy to discover the outcome of all that.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Take care. All the best. Adios.
Bye.
All right. We've had a couple of ESA talks here. Now we're going to take a little step back and talk about games and jamming to mix it up a little bit. And we're going to have a person here presenting specifically about game jams and jamming, and it's a person, quite a few. If you've been doing jams for a while, you probably have seen them once or twice or maybe many times. They've done over 100 jams in their lifetime, probably way more, in probably most of the continents. Personally, I've once had to bike and make a game with this person. Well, actually, no. Actually, they busted their leg, so I had to bike with another person, and they were in a car while they're making a game, while they were meant to be on the bike where I was. But anyway, that's how I tie myself into this. He's also been working on VR for over 10 years, maybe one of the most experienced VR person in Finland. Please round of applause for Samuli Jääskeläinen. First.
Ooh,
Share.
That's a tunnel.
I understand.
And then the entire screen is easiest. Onto it.
There we go.
And you need to select it.
And I don't have audio, so it's fine.
Oh, good. Now we jump back.
There we go.
There we go.
Dia, is it just... You're good to go, baby.
Oh, thank you. So, hello, my name is Samuli Jääskeläinen. I was asked here to come to talk a little bit about how to do game jams. So I have some general information for all the jammers and also some anecdotes of the similar jams that this one, where I've jammed with people who have some special skills that are not always relevant to the game development directly. So first of all, who I am, I'm Samuli Jääskeläinen. I've made 100 plus game jams. I have an Excel where I'm tracking those. I think it's like 120 something at the moment. I've done all kind of games, anything from commercial PC, VR consoles, variety of platforms, anything from 80s home arcade system to quantum computers. So spanning a wider span of time than I've actually been alive. Anything from the past to the future. And because of that, I have done all kind of different roles of game development. Usually I end up doing programming because that's where you get the most control of making the video game, but I'm happy with all the other roles. I just always tell people that don't let me compose any music because that I can't do, but I can slam my fingers on a table or something. I worked a lot with multicultural teams, so across continents. One of the funniest jams have been when we haven't had like even a common language with the people that I've been jamming with. So for example, in China and Korea, when you are jamming, not everyone speaks. Usually coders speak English, but then when you have like artists and more like designer people, they may not be as fluent with English, but then you just talk with Google Translate. Or what I've done sometimes with artists is that I just take their art and I draw on top of it and I give it back, and they're like, wow, okay, now I get what you are trying to tell me. Because then we speak the same language of drawing. Back in the day, I did some studies in the Kajaani Ammattikorkeakoulu, University of Applied Sciences, and currently I'm working at Varjo, so whenever I'm not jamming during weekends, I'm pushing the boundaries of mixed reality together to towards the future there. And also, we at Varjo actually work together with ESA. So they have our headsets, and Noora here is my friend, so we've been communicating from time to time when they are using the headsets. Unfortunately, I once asked, can I get to the drop test to the headset with them, but they said no. So that would have been cool to like see the 0G, but at least our headset has felt felt the 0G. So whenever I do game jams, I encounter a lot of different kind of people, and there are two ways of having this kind of like encounters where you encounter more specialists. First of all, are game jams like this, the Spaceship Jam, where the specialists are invited to jam with us or are here as a mentors, which I always appreciate a lot because they bring a lot of information and knowledge that I, as a game developer, do not have into the field. And some of those examples have been the Quantum Game Jam, Eco Game Jam, and Pikku Kakkonen Game Jam, where I've been part of, where we have had people from different fields. For example, quantum physicists or quantum computer mechanics who like actually do the hardware. I've learned a lot from them. Then in the Eco Game Jam, we had conservationists and other people who work with like plants and life and forest, and it was cool to learn more about this kind of nature side of things. And Pikku Kakkonen Game Jam, Pikku Kakkonen is the early childhood television program in Finland. So there was this kind of experts that were talking to us like how do you make games for like 3 years olds or 4 years old or 5 year olds, and you need to use totally different perspective when you are interacting with these different ages because they are developmentally so different, and that was interesting. But my favorite ones are always the random jam encounters, because when you travel around different game jams, then you just bump into people. So I've made games with like psychiatrists who actually like knows what they're doing, and we used a lot of their like knowledge into the game design. I've jammed with polyglots who speak like 20 languages, so then we can like do language stuff in games. I've done games with brain researchers, actually using the EEG brain interfaces. So then I made games that you control with your head and your thoughts, which is like super cool. Then I had a carpenter friend help me to build like physical things in games. Then there was this one lone shepherd who runs isolation games in the middle of Iceland, where there is nothing, like only sheep and him, and then we just make games, and it's pretty chill. And of course, you can find all kind of cultural experts when you are traveling, like people who actually know their culture. And I would consider myself one as well. Like I know Savo culture pretty well because I come from there. So all of us has some kind of expertise outside of game development as well. Here you can actually see a image of when I was doing the quantum game jam with quantum physicists, and the quantum physicists were playtesting our game, and of course they were from like Southern Europe, so they were gambling with money at the same time. I was a little bit skeptical because the game wasn't balanced yet, but that's a good way to balance and find the optimal strategies. And for game developers, how do we then jam with these kind of people who are not that familiar with how the games are made themselves? And of course, the first thing is always to avoid jargon, which is really difficult for both sides sometimes. When we are talking to them, and then of course when experts are talking to us, we both sides need to like be more exact and clear with our communication, and usually communicate a little bit more than we would usually communicate about topics, just to make sure that both sides get all the relevant information. I remember in one of these quantum game jams, we had like an artist who had a draw cards on the card game that matched certain quantum physical like a logic processors in the code. But we wanted to make it abstract so that even child can understand it. So I think she understood the quantum physics better than me after that jam, even though I was coding it, because she had to illustrate it. So that's a good way with this kind of like dumping down the communication in a way that like anyone can understand. Then it's also important to distribute the workload. So if we have people who are areas of their expertise, so that they understand what the game developers need from them and what kind of interfaces the information that the specialists are giving are in the game jam itself. So one simple example of this would be that I've done sometimes games with like people who are more about narrative design and script writers. So we might find some tooling that they have this certain format that they write the story in, that we can get it in the game easily. So, in terms of like physics, so if you are like making something like a space game and you have some researcher who you can do a lot of math in Python, but it might be a little bit difficult to sometimes convert this Python code into your normal C# Unity code because they have different math libraries. So you may need to like do some extra math on the paper to like actually like be able to implement these functionalities in the games. Then I always like to also invite anyone to come more into the practical part of the game development. So making the story, game mechanics, play testing. Often when you are working with the specialists, especially in fields like space and technical stuff, they already have some technical knowledge. So one example of this was in Sami Game Jam. We had like one guy, of course, being a cultural expert of his own culture, Sami culture, who was also a gamer. So he was quite confident about going around with the computer. So we just taught him how to do level design, and he was plopping down trees in Unity. And after plopping down 100 trees, then he was saying that, yeah, now I understand why some of the trees are flying in Skyrim. So it's always nice if you can find these kind of easy ways of involving people into the project and learning new skills. And same goes to other ways. I'm always happy to learn like some new techniques of like, for example, in the lectures that I've heard here about the space, that I'm learning a lot of new things and thinking of how I can actually integrate this information. And part of that is the teaching and sharing your passions. Of course, we are all game developers are passionate about game developers. Space people are very passionate about space. Hopefully, we are a little bit passionate about each other's topics and can like lift each other up and make something great together. And lastly, it's important to always understand why people are participating in these game jams, because there are people who want to learn new tools, people who want to learn new things. Some people want to make some portfolio material. So some people are more about the mentoring role, so they're just doing this on the side. So whoever you are doing things in a game jam with, it's always good to double check that you know why they are there and the projects that they're doing fits each other's expectations of the game jam. And then this is a more generic advice for all the game jams, not necessary for when you are working with experts. And this is all about the sharing your vision. So one of the most common issues that I see in game jams is that people are not actually making the same game because they haven't been communicating enough. So always ask clarifying questions. Do not assume anything that other people are thinking. I always love making mock-up screenshots and diagrams and comics and try to like let people know this is how I think this game should go. And one of my favorite this kind of like training exercises is cross-explaining game mechanics. So first I start explaining, for example, when you press left, the character moves left. When I press space, you can see particles on the ground dusting off. You hear the jumping sound and then the character jumps up. And then the next person continues from that. Okay, so now the character goes down and it's accelerating speed of going down because we have a gravity in this game. And then we can have a discussion when someone says, no, I thought our game doesn't have a gravity. So you can really easily identify where your idea of the game differs from the other people. So basically, write, communicate, draw, sing, dance, do anything to get the point across. And then once you start making the game, it's easy to like go into these silos. So it's good to keep everyone up to date that, hey, I'm doing this. This is what I'm doing next. And I need this from you. And I think these are the biggest issues of this game that we are making. We should maybe prepare for them. And lastly, I always think that everyone should play the game. So once the game is in a playable state, even if the maybe artists or designers may not have the installed all the tools that they can compile the game, they should still be given always chance to like play the game while it's being developed. So everyone can actually see the evolution of the game, because quite often happens in game jams that everyone is so focused on their own things that they just like develop, and then they realize that they have diverted and don't really understand what other people are doing. And of course, keep the game playable state whenever possible. So don't break your master branch in the version control, so anyone can play the games. And then lastly, this is a little bit late for this game jam, but for the future game jams, the other one on top of communication, where I can see that where game jams usually, or the games made in game jams can fail, is the scoping. And I always think scoping as a gambling. The larger the scope, the higher the risk of failure is. So there is nothing wrong with doing an enormous scope in your game jam, but then you just need to be more comfortable about failure. And remember, this is not just you. This needs to be agreed with everyone in the team, so that everyone is comfortable with the bigger risk. And a good example of that is this literal scope game here for oscilloscope, where we didn't really have functioning rendering until 3 or 4 hours before the deadline. But I made game blindly, trusting that we will have the rendering at some point. And it was a very good game, an amazing game, but it was enormous risk because it was so close to the deadline until we actually got the rendering functioning properly. As I said earlier, you need to always discuss with the other people in the team why they are in the game jam. So the scope aligned the personal scope the game to be aligned with all the goals of the people in the game jam. So for example, my goal in the game jam is usually just have fun and learn new things. But if someone in my team would be maybe a student who is looking for a portfolio material, or someone old grumpy programmer who really doesn't want to program, he just wants to make art or something else, that's completely fine as well. You just need to like find these roles and goals within the team with the communication. And then it's always good to agree that what is the life of the game after the jam. Because sometimes people want to continue the game. Usually they just freeze and that's it. No one touches it ever. But it's good to agree, because I have actually seen sometimes cases where some of the people take the game and continue developing it without telling the other team. And if it ends up becoming even a commercial project, then it's just a headache. So it's good to have like this kind of quick agreement. This, of course, can happen after the game jam as well. So if you want to develop the game further, then just inform all the other team members what is gonna happen in the game in the future. And then, of course, re-evaluate the scope throughout the jam. For our scope game, the 3 hours would not have been enough to save that project. But if your scope is more manageable, then you can scope it like forward and backward and bigger and smaller. For example, here we are doing the ISS sauna module game, where you need to experience a sauna in space. So we have parts like turning on the sauna, going into the shower, and going inside the sauna, taking some löyly and then washing yourself. But if we are running out of time, we can reduce some parts, like for example, let's skip the shower. Let's just go only to sauna. Or maybe the game can end when we throw the löyly and there is no post-sauna action. So just make this kind of scope that you can just like drop half of the game or like a part of the game away if you start running out of time. And scoping is a skill, like anything. It's not something that you're born with, so you will get better with it with time. And it's good to learn how to scope early. So sometimes it takes some time, like how long actually, for me, does it take time to make this thing, or how long does it take me to do this thing? And then if you start like calculating those things, even in your head, soon you will be able to estimate things better. But anyone who's made games, they know that estimations are very wild guesses usually. but slowly you will get better. I promise you. After 100 game jams, I can already tell you in certainty how long some things take to make, unless they are something that is completely new for me. And of course, ask from experienced devs. So if you don't really know, is this scope too big or small for a game jam? There is usually few people around who have made more games, so they can help you to define the scope of the game. And then lastly, some general jamming tips. Code for you at the 3 a.m. in the morning. So at the beginning of the projects, I usually tell people be diligent and make code that even when you are tired, you can actually read. And if you are an artist, name your layer so you know what you're doing. But of course, near the end of the game jam, then loosen up and then make all these hacks. If you start with all kind of shortcuts and hacks, then you don't have solid foundation to build hacks on top of. But on top of solid foundation, you can make a lot of hacks at the end. Always prioritize, as I said, for the scope, and never worry about reusability of anything game jams. I usually, when people, they think that, hey, this game jam game went well, I want to make a bigger commercial game, I usually tell, yeah, throw everything you made away in the game jam, just use that as an idea springboard and a prototype, don't actually take anything physically from that. Always ask for help other teams, and obviously remember to eat and sleep a little bit. That's the basic functions of the human being. I recommend those. And lastly, of course, have fun. That's why we are here. We are not here to crunch and generate too much stress for us. Of course, stress can be fun, so that's up to you. Lastly, do we have any questions in the chat?
I have some
or comments?
Okay. Go on. I can go on stage and ask, I guess. Oh, might be easiest. Sure. Yeah, so I actually have some questions that might be, to start, I will just stand here so they can hear the questions on screen as well. It's easier.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so do you have any, so when you develop a game like for non-jamming, and it can be very different from jamming games, so is it anything that's a good idea when you are like developing a game, like a long-term game that's not a jam game, that's a good idea to do there, but it's actually a quite bad idea to focus on during the jam itself, or when you have doing a jam game essentially?
Yeah, so usually what the game jam games you shouldn't too much focus on is usually these kind of like big long-term mechanics, because they are very difficult to play, test, and balance or anything like that. So that's why it's recommended to usually make very short, on the point kind of jam games. But of course, if you are making a longer game, then you don't sell 5-minute video games in Steam.
Yeah.
So you should always think it more as this kind of like a slice of a bigger game, or basically the game is just a tutorial of this mechanic and that's it. You don't go too far there. So it's all about managing the amount of content that you need to create. Like try to make games during game jams where you don't make that much content. Whereas when you are making bigger games, it's more about making the content and the pipeline. So one practical example of that would be that if you are making a big game, you want to have a very efficient pipeline for importing assets and making good level editing tools to save time. But in a game jam where you make just one level, it can be very manually handcrafted without any kind of ease of use tools.
Yep.
So you don't really need to use that much time for tooling.
Yep, that makes sense. And is it anything like when you're working within the group, or like on a more of procedure like way that's good on to avoid when doing jam games? So like working with agile workflow or anything along the like more kind of.
I think that's up to the team how they wanna like do the task distribution. You should have some kind of plan and some kind of task lists. Again, here I would just avoid that it's not too time consuming. So I wouldn't start doing like full Scrum with story point cards that you distribute among the tasks. Like that doesn't make any sense in a game jam environment. But whether it's agile or waterfall or any that kind of thing, it's up to the team to decide what is comfortable for them. I usually in game jams prefer this kind of that people have ownership of one area and then they just that's their final word for that. So there is less this kind of like conflict. Of course, there is always communication and ideas between the team members, but if it's a little bit more dictatorial, it's usually faster.
Yep, that makes sense. And is it anything that you can do in a jam game that's actually can be a very good idea to do that, even if like it's not recommended normally in other like doing larger games? Or...
Yeah, one thing, the reason why I personally love game jams the most is that you don't need to think about the commercial aspect of the game or the releasing of the game or the marketing of the game, like all these other things that you really need to focus in commercial games. So that's basically my main goal with game jam games is that like I totally throw away those ideas and I don't really think does this make sense as a game. I just more think it as is this idea fun? And then secondary, is this idea something that is also fun to make? Because understanding what kind of process you like to make. Like let's take an example like driving games. I love driving games, but I hate coding driving physics. So I would never make a driving game, even though I love the genre. So these kind of things, it's good to always check with the game jams is that you just make games that you enjoy making.
Yep, I mean that makes sense. Do we have any questions from? Yeah, Häll.
Well, speaking of genre or like car game, whatever, like, is there a genre or style of game that you would absolutely recommend to try and one that you absolutely not recommend to try at a jam?
Not genre, but generally I always tell people that if you are not very confident of your skills, don't make any networking in your video games. So don't try to make networked multiplayer games. Of course, if you make it in like Roblox or what is the Fortnite Studios or whatever, then it's maybe more doable. And of course, if you do like multiplayer programming as your day job. But generally, I always tell people to avoid any kind of networking because it's not just that networking is difficult. Debugging networking is super time consuming. So it takes a lot of time. And for something that I always recommend is that if you always had this kind of like some ideas and stupid things in your head that you just want to try out, they can be just like game idea, but it could also be a tool or something else. Just use game jam to get that creativity out of you. Like one game jam, I for example made all the art with finger paint, just because I can. So if you have this kind of like a passions and ideas, just like go for it in game jams. That's the best place to be crazy.
Cool. Do you have any other questions from audience? Yeah.
Is it strictly related to game jam in general? But how do you do sauna and löyly in zero gravity?
We don't know yet.
Okay.
So, but luckily we have a lot of mentors and experts. So our team actually has 2 people who have decided, we have this designated researcher role for them. So they are first doing the base level of research. And once we have formulated questions that actually make sense, then we will ask the experts to not waste too much of their time with the stupid low-level questions yet.
Cool.
Hopefully we learn during this weekend how do we throw the löyly.
I love that. I love that idea. It's very Finnish.
Yes.
Cool. Is anyone else do have any questions regarding jammings? No. In that case, actually, I have a question regarding more like specialized jams because you have a couple of specialized jams.
Yeah.
And when working with specialists, do you like usually work with them within the team to develop a game or outside of the team, like more of a reference point that you can ask questions or and what would do you prefer of those two kind of ways of working if you've done both?
of those, I've done work both ways. I usually prefer if they can come and actually join the team, or maybe 2 or 3 teams if we share a one expert among teams, because then it's usually you get this kind of like more out of the game jam in both parties, because their fingerprint is more visible in the game after that. But I always understand that it's not always practical, time-wise or location-wise. So this kind of like mentor system that we have here, that we can tag mentors and ask questions, I think works as this kind of like more like a backup as a secondary system. And some game jams I've seen, they have both.
Yeah, I think we do have some online people from ESA that might be joining some teams as well. Yeah. Häll.
One last question about what would you say, because the Finnish Game Jam, all praise to you, making a lot of jams, and that's cool. And those are quite big, require a lot of work from a lot of people. The game jam can be very small, just with your friends, or make with 1 or 2 friends something weird, which you've done a lot of these. How would you tell people to kind of start if they just want to have a jam with their classmates or with their friends or something?
Yeah, so if you just want to make games with your friends, but you want to have this kind of like a game jam framework, there's a lot of online game jams. My favorite one is Ludum Dare, and that's because its community is formed in a way that if you actually comment and give feedback to other people's games, they are incentivized to actually give feedback and comment your games as well. So that's why I like Ludum Dare, is that it's one of the few game jams where you actually get proper player feedback. But on top of Ludum Dare, you just go to itch.io, it's filled with game jams. If you are starting out game development, then I usually recommend on-location game jams first, because it's easier to get started when you have experts physically around you.
Slightly biased, but having some students and stuff, like how would you encourage students if they want to start, or for the class to do their own internal game jam? Are there any tips
for organizing it?
Yeah, or how they can start like that. Yeah, I will not be making. I don't have the time to organize.
Yeah. So when I was a student, we just jammed in the communal dining table or the rooms or floor, or used the school facilities to like jam. I did a lot of game jams using the school facilities or my room during student times that weren't affiliated by the school at all. So I was just doing game jams because I like doing game jams. And then usually when I'm saying that, hey, there is this game jam coming, I'm gonna participate in a weekend, then I can ask some friends, does anyone wanna join? Some people join, some people don't. It's up to them. And I've been jamming like that since my student days. I still do the same thing. Sometimes I just ping my friends in Discord or put a public post in Twitter that, hey, I'm jamming. If someone wants to join, you can. It's usually just a matter of reaching out, and sometimes schedules match with people. Sometimes they do not. Of course, you can also find nowadays with online communities, if you are confident enough, you can find like peers online to jam with as well.
Thank you.
Cool. If we don't have any more questions, I will check the Discord as well if we have received anything there. I don't think so. No. In that case, I think we will have a short break, and then the next speaker will come up afterwards.
Well, you talking about the sponsor thing?
No. Yeah, or we might
we have a plan with Ren.
Okay, good. Then I will leave the word to
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Samuli.
All right, let's see if we can get our beautiful faces back up here.
Yes, we are back online. So that was Samuli. Like I said, he's done a few game jams. Wonderful person. I really recommend, go and talk with him. Maybe not when he's jamming, because that's gonna, just be mindful. But yeah, so we're gonna have one more person to come up and talk a little bit. And we started with 2 people from ESA. We have a person who's been doing I think Samuli is the closest thing I can call like a professional game jammer. And we've had that, and now we're going to have something a little bit different again. And the next person who's going to be coming up and talk is a person who's been working at Aalto University for over 10 decades as a researcher, space technology research. Specifically, they did something really cool, which was, from my understanding, the first student-led satellite creation in Finland called Aalto 1, which they then got into space. Funnily enough, it ended up in space after Aalto 2 went to space. So I don't know, chronologically it's weird, but then again, it's Aalto University, who knows? Things are different and work differently there. But they also work with ESA as a collaborator and help with fairly many things. I looked into it and it all sounded very technological and very intelligent. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let them say what they're doing. So please help me welcome Jaan Praks to the stage. And while we set up with Jaan, because he's going to get his presentation on the computer, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsors who have been helping us make this jam, this Spaceship Jam, possible. So thank you, sponsors. Let's hear you out.
IT-konsultti on varmaan semmoinen, ehkä voisi niin kuin rumasti sanoa, että semmoinen viisastelija, joka käy kertomassa ihmisille, että mistä napista tietokone laitetaan päälle.
Tässä on tietokoneesi.
Tämä on pelkkä näppäimistö.
Kyllä me näissä rakettikauppiaspiireissä käydään koko ajan dialogia kehittäjien kanssa ja pyritään tovit. Miten se on noin vaikea?
Ikinä en ole konsulttia ostanut. Enkä osta.
Game Makers of Finland is a trade union for employees and those intending to work in the game industry. We help and advise members throughout their careers in matters related to job search, remuneration, and employment. We develop standard and fair working rules for the industry and thereby promote the vitality of the Finnish game industry. At the same time, we are setting an example internationally as we are the world's first union in the game industry. Belonging to a union is like taking out insurance. You can get help when you need it most, as you may encounter unexpected turns and changes in working life. Versatile career services tailored for technology and game industry professionals. Versatile trainings and courses and personal guidance help you to get your career moving in the right direction. Professional pride is an appreciation of one's expertise and profession. By being a member of the Game Makers, you are among your own.
So, hello everybody. My name is Jaan Praks. I'm coming from Aalto University, and this might be my first game jam. So, but it always might be a nice time to have a first time. I'm going to give a small presentation about what happens in space at the moment, what are small satellites, what we did, and I'm trying to get back to the games as well a bit. However, games are not exactly my area, so I am trying to stay in the sort of inspirational area more than actual game area. All right, can I get also my presentation, or is it already visible? It's probably all right. Not yet?
Not yet. Checking. Working on it.
All right. I'm starting with a couple of words about where I'm come from, and then we roll into the actual presentation. But let's see, can we get this presentation showing as well?
I'm asking the main room.
Yeah, we might have technical problems, which are not uncommon in space technology as well. So space technology actually has a long history of failures before we started to have any success. So like approximately half of the missions in the beginning to Mars or Moon or anywhere failed, which is interesting to learn. Now we are much better nowadays, but it's yes, it's a difficult area. Space is a very difficult environment.
Honestly, 50% is way bigger, way more. The success rate is way bigger, higher success rate than I would have expected in the beginning.
Yeah, and of course it started to sort of slide into the better side. But all right, now we have my slides, and we are good to go. I'm going to talk about from student projects to commercial constellations, which is I just cooked up some kind of topic for me in order to be more interesting. I'm coming from Aalto University. I'm actually a professor there. I'm leading a small team who is building nanosatellites and small satellites, researches space technology, and I'm going to tell you a bit about what the space technology at Aalto University is, what we do, and so on. And my own background is actually Earth observation or remote sensing. And let's take first the look from the orbit. Earth is a wonderful planet, the only one we actually can comfortably live on. And here you can see the night view of the planet, and you can see like there is a lot of light. And this light is human civilization. So human civilization is actually occupying the entire planet, more or less, like absolutely everywhere. It comes back, so you can see we are, as a human beings, absolutely everywhere. And as this is our environment where we live, we also need to manage it. So first off, we were like stepping out of the caves and starting to do agriculture, grow plants, do stuff. Now we have to manage not only the fields or the ponds, but we have to manage the entire planet, including the atmosphere and the oceans and all the stuff. All right. One of the handy tool for this is space, satellites. What the satellites are doing, my own area is Earth observation, as I said. So satellites are orbiting the Earth and taking pictures. And because of the satellites, we know what is happening on the surface of the Earth. And this way, this vantage point in space is much more convenient than almost any other technology. It's definitely much more affordable. And that means, like, in order to get to space, and it's super expensive, one satellite has been like hundreds of millions and so on and so on. However, considering the size of the planet and the need of the information, it's still the cheapest way of getting actual information, for example, about climate change. And most of our information about the climate change or any global change is actually coming from the satellites. So here you can see a couple of like demonstrations, what satellites can do, what they measure from space, and so on. So here we can see, for example, how permafrost is changing. We were seeing also that Etna was moving, volcanism is working, and so on. So wonderful things. It's like I can give you like hours of experience how this works, but I don't think we should go to there. I would like to talk about new space. So what is new space and what is happening at the moment? I don't know. Have you seen this video or not before? But this is totally crazy. I mean, we are living times where we can sort of peek out from the sports car window and seeing the entire planet is sliding by. And for me, it's absolutely inspirational and absolutely crazy. This gives you an idea of what we as a human beings, as a civilization can actually do. So why this is happening? Let's go a bit and check this out. So new space is a thing where we are putting now cheaper, smaller, younger, agile, commercial space technology to space. And the amount of space technology in space actually growing at staggering speed at the moment. And why this is happening is that there was a development gap in space technology. So space technology was driven by big countries and big space agencies, and they were only trying to play very securely everything. So one of these kind of very big satellites typically cost is like hundreds of millions, sometimes tens of billions. For example, James Webb Telescope, almost 20 billion project. But electronics has been miniaturizing. So we have mobile phones in our pockets. They are really small power devices which can do absolutely amazing things. You can maybe think about like first digital cameras, how like bulky and bad they were. And now you have in every phone like 4 SLR quality cameras. So you can do a digital magic and you can take from really, really like small, like a button camera, a really good pictures. And this is how sensor technology is developing and how small power we can use nowadays to operate large computational powers and so on. And the third important thing is that the launch price has been declining. So that means United States was canceling the space shuttle program and diverting the money into the private launchers. So this actually changed the whole scene because one single space shuttle launch cost tag was like 1.2 billion. One launch with the rocket is maybe only 50 million. So there is like a huge difference how much stuff for the same money we can put to space if we are using like just ordinary rockets, well-developed rockets, or a space shuttle. Around the same time when United States started to divert their efforts towards the more private space, universities started to build a very small satellites, like satellites which are only like 1 liter, like 10 centimeter size. They were called CubeSats, they were standardized, and they started to change the world. So it was a standard format which you could put anywhere in any rocket and launch to space. And then, of course, there was startup boom also around this time, starting in United States, also in Europe. And first student teams took this standard small satellites and started to make commercial satellites. So this is a company nowadays called Planet. And then it was Planet Labs. And these guys were literally making their first satellite in the garage and making it a commercial endeavor. Their satellites nowadays are able to take this type of images, and they are making these satellites in serious production. They are making like hundreds of satellites, and this company is nowadays the biggest operator of Earth observation fleet in the world. And they have been changing the whole game. They can manage the fleet and operate the satellites and take the data down with much cheaper than any time in history before. So they built this kind of imaging constellations where you have hundreds of satellites taking images of the Earth. So why so many satellites is actually important. So if we look at the satellites here, you can see one satellite taking images. Very nice. You can every now and then take an image. And for example, if you take image of Helsinki, you're coming back in 2 weeks to take the next image with the same geometry of Helsinki. 2 weeks, just too long time to see anything which actually interests our economy, like parking lots or what is happening in a runway or in a harbor, or whatever is happening happens like in terms of hours. So that's why if you put this like 30 satellites or 130 satellites to space, suddenly you start to get images, you start to get information almost every hour, at least every day first, and then actually every hour. In order to put so many satellites to space, one single satellite needs to be cheap. And then that's why you make very small satellites. You try to make them very capable, and then you have money in 100 million satellite project. If you can make one satellite with 1 million only, you already have 100 satellites, and you are imaging 100 times more frequently. And this is propelling the space economy. So suddenly, around 2010-ish, I would say the investment to make a satellite was so small already that it started to be viable to make an actual consumer market products. And that was propelling the space economy. Space launch price is coming down all the time. And here you can see that the most modern Falcon Heavy rockets nowadays already can bring stuff to orbit like less than at $1,000 or $2,000 per kilogram. And you can see this is the amount of satellites at the moment, how fast the amount of satellites is growing. So we are living absolutely staggering growth time where the technology around the Earth in the orbit is growing really, really fast. So throughout the history of space exploration, we have been launching like some hundreds of satellites per year. And now we are launching thousands, and soon we are going to launch like tens of thousands of satellites every single year. That means the whole field is going to be changed. So now I'm going to tell a bit what happens in Finland and how Finland was joining this new space race. And we started 2010 with a student team. So we tried to also build a CubeSat, a really simple satellite. And here is our team. And the first satellite model was sort of made from like aluminum bars and clay and some electronic waste actually. And there was like not as a satellite at all. But year by year, we were getting better, and we were starting to get the satellite together. And in 5 years, we were able to actually build the first satellite. It was a really first satellite of Finland. There has been one satellite project which tried to make a Finnish satellite around mid-90s, but it was not successful, and it was actually not getting to anywhere near to having anything ready. So this was the first one, which was then launched to space 2017. And we had wonderful time with the team. And 2017, Midsummer Eve, the rocket from India was going up to space, bringing the satellite Aalto 1 to space as well. And the project was really successful. The satellite deployed, it started to communicate, although we have been like building most of the satellite hardware ourselves with the students. Student projects are super turbulent, super let's say, the discontinuity is problem, and people are coming and going, and they don't know necessarily what they are doing, and so on. But the satellite worked. We had 3 payloads. One was coming from VTT, another from University of Turku, the third one from Finnish Meteorological Institute. almost every single payload worked at least somehow, and we were able to take many first with this satellite. And this is the part of the team at the launch party or the launch happening. But we, more than this, like one satellite at some science results, we were actually generating entire generation of new satellite builders. And these satellite builders started to generate their own stuff. There was like not much satellite technology companies around in Finland. They wanted to build their own satellites and wanted to work in this area, so they founded their own companies. The biggest company which they founded was called ISI, and this was actually founded already during our project, or another project at Aalto University was founded at the same time. And our satellite guys, Rafael and Pekka, here you have them. Here is Pekka and here is Rafael. Made the project called ISI, and now ISI is the biggest space company in Finland. They have more than 800 people working there. They have more than 40 satellites in space. They are operating in like 3 continents, and they are providing the world's best small satellite radars, which are able to then cover the whole Earth with satellite images every now and then. And here you can see they are pushing the borders. They are able to, for example, image this kind of synthetic aperture radar videos from space. They are making surveillance images, monitoring images. They can image in, let's say, 6 hours, almost any place on the planet. And they are doing really, really well in terms of different kind of investments. And they are already sort of unicorn scale company who is doing really cool stuff in Finland and selling satellites more than they can produce at the moment, approximately. But they were not the only company. Another company was founded during this times, and from this team is Kuva Space. And Kuva Space is making a very small, like let's say something like 30 times 30 times 30 centimeter satellites, which are hyperspectral imagers, using the same imaging technology than VTT camera in the first Aalto 1 satellites was using. Kuva Space is building at the moment the constellation of 100 satellites to orbit and looking for growth and its investments, and growing at the moment very, very rapidly as well. And this is not the only one. There is like so many different companies, Reorbit, Aurora Propulsion, who are making their own constellations and launching their own satellites in Finland. Additionally, Aalto University was taking a next step as well. Now we are operating a for-sale center of excellence where we are building satellites still together with scientists from Helsinki University, University of Turku, Finnish Meteorological Institute, and now we are making at our labs much more professional level. We are making science satellites which have science payloads, and our next satellite is going to space according to the current information in the beginning of November with Transporter 15 mission with SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket. And we are having different other kind of projects as well, which are working mostly with different kind of small satellite space hardware. And for example, we are developing a really, really thin antenna technology so that you can put antenna to a thin blanket and then you just like deploy it in space, and you can get the satellite very, very small, and you still have very, very big antennas, which is needed, for example, for communication with a single handheld device like mobile phones. We have some projects which are related to AI and edge computing in space, which is a popular technology area emerging. We are working with LEO PNT, that means navigation signal satellites, which are very small and very close. At the moment, navigation satellites with a GNSS and GPS signal is coming like from 20,000 kilometers. We would like to deliver this signal more than like 500 kilometers only. We are making research at the moment also on the very low Earth orbit satellites which are, let's say, starting to get so close to the atmosphere that they are experiencing a lot of drag. And this area is growing as well, because in this below 500 kilometer orbits, you don't have space debris. That's why is also the International Space Station is so low that you don't have space debris there. But you have to use special coatings for the satellites and special shapes in order to actually maintain your stuff there. And also, European Space Agency and the whole space infrastructure in Finland is growing. So if you are doing your games and something is like clicking and you would like to actually start developing something bigger, commercial, go to the market, and you have a space team in your game, or you want to apply it somehow in space. Now we have different accelerators in Finland which can help you. For example, European Space Agency Business Incubator Center is is operated by Aalto University. Come, apply, get money, get your game company flying. And now we have also ESA Lab, which is working with different kind of geospatial technologies, which definitely includes also virtual realities and AI and different new digital concepts and digital services. Finland is also now operating one of the Nordics' biggest space happening. This is called Space Workshop, or actually Winter Satellite Workshop. 25 in this January, we had more than 1,800 people registered, 320 presentations, 3 days, a great big sort of space jam for 3 days. And the next one is coming 26 in January. The happening is for free. Just come, see what we have, what is happening in space, who are the investors, who are the operators of satellites, who is launching your satellite. There is a trade show, there is like scientific presentations, and there are workshops also about digital developments. All right, then this was sort of the part about space technology development at the moment, but a couple of my own thoughts about what is the role of digital world in how space is actually perceived. You saw in this presentation a lot of different images from space and the satellite pictures and orbit, and almost absolutely everything is rendered. So it's space is big, space is black. How we perceive space is very much actually coming from digital media, from movies, from games, from pictures. So that means you are the people who are creating the visual world, how we understand and perceive space. So therefore, this is really important field. So we started our first project. This is Aalto 2 project. In order to even get these kinds of things going, we first made the renders. And then we start to build the satellite, actual satellite itself. So renders and all these digital images of anything related to space are really important. I don't know how many of you have been actually seeing space or Mars pictures. So there is a lot of Mars pictures around, and big part of them are just rendered. But they are pretty realistic, because nowadays we have also a lot of devices on surface of Mars, and we actually know how it looks like. But I'm just trying to tell you that the digital world, what we are creating, what you are creating, is shaping very much the actual world, how this will develop, and what we are going to try to do. All right, I think I'm also have been using quite a bit of time already, and I'm trying to end my presentation with a couple of thoughts about that our planet is a big spaceship, which we need really take care of, and it provides exceptional conditions for us to thrive and also our fellow living beings to thrive. And it's also the exceptionally beautiful place in the universe. So we haven't seen anything nearly as nice as Earth in space. And the space is providing a unique vantage point for taking a picture and control and the pulse of this wonderful planet. And we have a lot of rocket developments. We are going to space. We are the only species who is going to space. And you can see this space exploration of humankind as the seeds of life, seeds of intelligence, which are exploring the space and going around like seeds of a flower. So thank you very much. I'm open for questions. I hope I gave you some overview about what is happening in, let's say, a physical space at the moment.
Thank you. I was just joining here because otherwise people won't hear the questions. And if we have any on Discord or anything, Amy will check. I will start with a question of my own. So regarding satellites, and because we're doing game jams and games, do you know, twofold question, do you know any games that use satellite data in any proper way? And second part would be, do you have any ideas how that could be utilized in games? It depends what you call games. I myself use a lot of software which actually deals with the satellite data, but not necessarily actual games. There is entire European Union Copernicus program which gives all the satellite images to anybody for free. So you can actually go and download terabytes of satellite images from Science Hub and just do whatever you want to do with it. So there is definitely existing a lot of data which can be used. I guess satellite images of Mars and surroundings probably have been at least inspiring, if not actually used in the games as well. But definitely this is an area which should be promoted, that this kind of, especially so mixed reality type of things, that you can have a real data mixed with more gamified data or something like this. Yes, I just want, because I was also trying to think if there's any game, and I only could think of one, which is, I guess, technically satellites. It's Microsoft Flight Simulator, which uses the maps, 3D maps that we've gotten, and that's how you get the whole planet to be able to fly around. Other than, I don't know if any chat, do you know any games that use satellites? Because I can't think of any others.
I mean, what, for example, games that use like GPS would also be satellites, right? Like Pokemon Go and things like that.
Oh yeah,
that is
that's
true.
Yeah,
this is augmented reality type of thing, and of course the navigation signal for these games is coming from space all the time. Yes,
that's a good shot. Good
yes,
job. Very good. So, but like point being, there's a whole world out there of satellites that could be potentially used with games. Also, I want a quick shout out when you're mentioning that how you're making games and envisioning things will affect how we actually do things, which I think, well, I don't know if I can say gaming is the same as science fiction, but science fiction has been, like Star Trek and all of these have affected very heavily on people who
indeed
have made stuff and wanted to make stuff.
It's, I mean, games, literature, movies, these are the tools to think and dream. And when some dream is really like, seems to be possible, then we start to make it happen.
Exactly. Yes. Did we have anything on Discord?
No, it doesn't seem like it.
All right. Do we have any questions here? This was maybe the most sort of technical and most dense of these presentations, and I feel like I'm at least not a good person to ask these technical questions. That's why I'm throwing you.
Yeah, I'm sort of evangelista who is like going and tells like what happens in space and what are the satellites. I'm happy to deliver the message, and if there is sometimes questions coming, I'm open for.
So I will also, you've been here for a while, so you know this is Finland, having to ask publicly questions out of the question. So you might, if you stay around, people might come and talk to you about things. And also, you mentioned the space workshop. So check the website. It's actually the 20th to 23rd of January,
yes,
which is really good because the 26th to the 1st of February is Global Game Jam. So you can do both First weekend, Space Workshop.
Yes.
Second weekend, Global Game
come
Jam.
to Space Workshop, Winter Satellite Workshop to get some ideas and get some data and get some teammates. We have inflatable astronaut in front of Dipoli, and we have a lot of students there. It's a big student happening as well, and I think it could be a good start for Game Jam.
Absolutely. It sounds, even if nothing else, sounds very interesting. So I think you should check it out. Okay. Thank you very much, Jaan.
Thank you very much.
And I will take over here. This is pretty much the end of this part of Spaceship Jam. Thank you for being with us here, all the jammers here, the people in here, the people on the stream. It's been very cool. This is the first ever ECA FGJ collaboration. That's a lot of letters. Collaboration, hopefully only the first one of many to come. Good luck with your games. Have a good time. Keep jamming. Thank you, and ta-ta. Bye-bye.